Hi, I'm Carlin Holbrook. I'm a John Maxwell Team certified coach, teacher, trainer, speaker, published author, and influencer with more than 25 years of global leadership experience. If there's one thing I've seen firsthand time and time again, it's that the best leaders inspire others to follow their purpose and their passions, while the influence of a bad leader can literally tear down people's potential. Join me for a few sips of leadership tips that will help you become a better leader by first conquering. I have a friend who orders her coffee at Starbucks, caramel macchiato iced upside down. I was like, well, that's genius, because if you order it just normal caramel macchiato, you get like this tiny little drizzle of caramel on the top of it. But when you order it upside down, they put a lot more at the bottom. Then you get in there and you can mix it all up, right? Then it's tasty. You get caramel throughout your whole coffee. I'm like, genius. Secret menu. Love it. So today we're not talking about upside down, but we're going to talk about Inside Out. Yes, Inside Out, the movie, continuing our leadership series in popular culture. Hope you've seen it. I'm not going to spoil anything today. Don't worry. I'm not going to go deep into that. Just want to talk about the basics of emotions and how that impacts our leadership. And boy, does it ever, right? So for those of you who remember the first movie, Inside Out, we were introduced to these emotions: sad, anger, joy, and disgust. They're all created. It's a wonderful Disney movie if you haven't seen it. I still love the first one better, but the second one did have a lot of really good meat, and I definitely recommend it. I enjoyed it. But anyway, the original movie, so you're following a young girl, little girl, where she's kind of learning to come into her core emotions, if you will, of sad, anger, joy, and disgust in various ways. Funny ways, not so funny ways, how it goes, right? But the characters that they essentially create characters that emulate these different emotions, and the different emotions take over different parts of her day, different parts of her conversations with different people. So it's very humorous, but also touching and heartfelt, and has good lessons, right? Those of you who maybe remember shows from the 80s and 90s, there was a show called Herman's Head. So it kind of reminds me of that, where they had these people, the voices in Herman's head, and you got like an inside look of what was going on in his head, and then you got to see what came out of his mouth based on some of the conversations and stuff in his head. So it's funny. It's funny, and it's also applicable, because we all have lots of voices in our head, right? Our inner voice is not just one voice. We have lots of different thoughts and thinking all the time. And again, thoughts become things, thoughts become actions, and it's important to know what is emotion versus also what's evidence, right? So in Inside Out 2, we learn 4 new emotions, because little girl has grown up. Riley has grown up. She's now a teenager, like a young teenager, about to enter high school, freshman year. It's the most awkward time. Stop, if you will, take a little time machine back to your teen years and remember awkwardness, and remember, gosh, I didn't even know who I was then. I was trying to figure it out. Hormones surging, your body's changing. You do have new emotions, and the 4 that we see in Inside Out 2 is anxiety, embarrassment, envy, and ennui. All right, full disclosure, I had to totally Google ennui because I didn't know what it meant. And I love it because it's about ennui. It's very French sounding. For those of you who are like, oh, okay, yeah, I don't know either. It basically means like tired, boredom, kind of like a case of the blahs. But like if you were channeling it from a teenage perspective, it's more like I'm indifferent, whatever, like over it, right? Just totally over it. So those are the 4 emotions that she starts to experience. And then basically the movie is a battle of the core emotions and these new emotions, and fighting against each other. And of course, joy, our queen, which is the ultimate emotion that we all want to feel all the time, is just like beside herself. Like, wait, hold on. Like these new emotions are robbing her of her joy, right? Again, not going to spoil it, not going to tell you what happens, but I will say it was so fascinating to really see a young teenage girl, and like how the emotions in her head then dictated like the decisions that she was making. So when anxiety entered the picture, and you saw and felt like just her body's physiology changed, her heartbeat fast, she sweat, she was panicking, she was shallow breathing, like all of what was going on in her head was affecting her body. And we know this to be true, right? Our emotions absolutely affect our physiological bodies, our health. That's why stress is like number one killer here at least in the US, if not, I think the world, right? Stress-induced or stress-related diseases. And when she would get anxious about something because she wanted so bad to be cool and to have these other girls that were older than her and further along in the sport in ice hockey that she played, she wanted them to see her like cool too. So then she would say something and sound like kind of idiot, sort of envious sounding, like overly envious sounding. And then she would get really embarrassed because it was clear she said the wrong thing. So you saw like in 30 seconds, like all of these different emotions coming at her. And then when she was struggling controlling the anxiety or the envy, and then she would get angry, that would make her angry. And then she would ultimately got to a point where ennui just kind of took over. And that was ruining relationships too, because it was like, I'm done. I can't possibly even deal with this anymore. Like whatever, So anyway, fascinating movie, but also just, again, so many leadership lessons in this. I was also listening recently to Maxwell Executive Podcast, which is great. It's quick nuggets of just great wisdom. This particular episode, it was episode 296, so in case you want to listen to it, it's the EVP Maxwell Leadership, the EVP of Maxwell Leadership, Chris Cody, and then Perry Holly, the host. It was them having a conversation literally about this, about how to be character-driven, not emotion-driven in our leadership. And I thought, oh, perfect timing. I just saw Inside Out 2, and to talk about this. So some of the things they talk about, and I know I talk a lot about emotional intelligence, but it's because it is such a critical thing that we need to master, a behavior, if you will, an ability. And it's not easy to, because it takes a lot of intentionality to read the room, for lack of a better phrase, or to really pause and take a step back and discern what's happening in a situation, a conversation, etc. So they talked about how, there's nothing worse when you have a moody leader, right? So you don't know what mood they're going to be in today. They're coming in one day angry, the next day, happy and joyful, and then maybe another day you're getting a little bit of the ennui kind of thing going on. And how hard is that to try to manage to that, to try to lead to a leader that it's like, I don't know what I'm going to get, like hour by hour, day by day, or what is going to set them off and make them angry, or what's going to set them off and be disgusted. I mean, thinking through all the different emotions, right? People are not, those kind of leaders are really tough because they're emotion-driven leaders. And they're not going to make good decisions because they're making decisions based on emotion, and they're allowing themselves to react emotionally to something. How on earth could anybody ever keep up with that? Because again, emotions are complex. Emotions are, there's a lot of reasons when we feel them. There could just be a lot going on in their own personal life, and they're allowing their emotions at work to be affected and impacted. And I'm not saying be a robot, so please don't mistake what I'm saying. Like, well, of course, Carlin, if you have a death in the family, it's going to affect you at work. Yes, I recognize that. So then this is where I'm saying, if you are a character-driven leader, you recognize, I'm having an emotional time in my life. I'm not going to make big decisions, or maybe not even talk to people and take a day off and take a moment back, or be authentic and be real and transparent to go, you know what, I'm just going through a lot right now with my family. So please just know if something comes out a little different, that's why. I think that's also why it's so important as leaders to be open and vulnerable with what's going on in your life. And I know that doesn't make everybody feel comfortable, because it's like, well, it's not nobody's business but my own. And I'm a private person. I hear that a lot. But I'm a private person and I don't want people to know my business. It's like, I get that to a point. You don't have to give everybody details, like every little detail of what's going on in your life. You don't. But I think it helps other humans recognize that you're human too, because we all at some point in our lives will go through mourning a loss of a friend or a family member. We will all at some point in our lives will go through all these emotions dealing with, a relationship or your kids or a friend or a business or a loss of a job, a loss of things. We all go through these things. And it so helps when leaders don't act like, oh, I don't experience any of that. I am this private person. You will never know me. And because this is work and I compartmentalize stuff and just do this. Because the reality is, no, you don't. Because you are human and your emotions will get the best of you and they will impact your leadership, whether you like it or not. And often these are the moody leaders out there who are just like, oh, what's wrong with that guy today? But it's like you have no idea. You have no idea if it's you. You have no idea if it's something you said, if something the team did, if it's work, if it's something his leader said. Or it could just be like he had a bad morning trying to get his kids ready for school. Or she had a fight with her husband and, it's just coming to work and not such good sorts. Again, you don't have to tell everybody all the gory details, but I think it's okay to say, guys, I'm just having a bad day. I'm just having a rough day. I'm having a rough time at home. Just bear with me, okay? So please don't take anything I'm doing personally. And guess what? If I do say something that feels like emotionally attacking or call me on it. See, that's what good leaders do. It's like, please call me on it. Please give me that feedback. There's nothing worse to me than people going and talking about you instead of to you. It's like, well, you're not giving that person the opportunity to change or to adjust or to be mindful of their actions. We all need an inner circle. We all need people that we can trust that can call us on that. But to me, the best people to call you on the carpet of things are literally the people in your charge, or literally the people who are reporting to you. And those are often the people most scared to say something to you for fear of setting you off or overstepping or crossing a line or being offensive. See, now these are all the emotions I have in my head at times. And it's like, but to me, the best leaders are the ones who you can be vulnerable with and be like, hey, knock, knock, leader, can I talk to you? Or hey, zoom, zoom, or, whatever, leader, can I just grab a few minutes to say, man, that felt like you were really angry at us, or that felt like you were really disgusted with what the project was. Is that true? Is that how you feel? Like, just to really get a little deeper and discern a bit more. Because that is really tough to manage to people's emotions when they are this complex, right? So leaders focus on being more character driven. And that doesn't mean you won't have emotions. It just means that that there are going to be times where you might need to take a step away, take a take a day off, or just maybe today I really don't know if I should talk to humans and I'm just going to work at my computer, like be more aware of those. And then also when it comes to decision making, to look at more of the evidence, not the emotion of that decision. And you can do this and still make very quick decisions. Being emotional, in fact, ruins the ability to make quick decisions because your emotions cloud your better judgment. So it's more important, and this is a lot of what they talk about in that podcast, to be character driven. And people are attracted to high character leaders. So there's a formula that they shared in the podcast I thought was really good. It's about how do you respond? Like, what do you do when you are faced with something that's going to help you be more character driven rather than emotional driven? So it's E plus R equals O. Not E equals MC squared. E plus R equals O. E for event, so something happens. R for this is how you respond. And when we say respond, that is in character. React is emotion. I'm going to say that again because I think it's a very key distinction. When something happens, something unplanned, something comes at you, that's the event. And then if you respond with a character-driven approach, decision, etc., that's character-driven. Reacting is when the emotions come. And then O is outcome. Now, let me be clear. We know we can't control the E because things come at us very unexpectedly and always will. So stop trying to control everything. It just doesn't happen. But we can control the R. We can do the right thing. Don't do what you feel. So doing the right thing is character. That is in response. I'm going to respond to do the right thing, not what I feel and react. hope that's sinking in. Those are very, very clear distinctions, but also tough if you're not in tune with who you are, your character, versus emotion. If you're an emotions-based leader, it means an event happens, you respond with your emotion. So I'm going to make a decision in anger, disgust, anxiety. That happens with a lot of leaders, right? Versus an event happens and I'm going to pause and I'm going to take a step and I'm going to go, okay, now knowing this is who I am, these are the values of my team, this is what we should focus on doing next. And even though sometimes the anxiety is still trying to knock inside your head, trying to control your control board in there, maybe also a little disgust, maybe a little anger, all the negative emotions are still trying to control, that you go, hold on, emotions, that's great. Like, I know what you're trying to do and that's normal. I'm allowed to feel my feelings, but I'm not going to respond with my reaction. I know it takes so much practice. So the key thing is you don't want to make based decisions. So popular decisions might be, okay, I'm going to react. This is going to make people feel better because everyone's angry at what happened or has a lot of anxiety about this event that just happened to us. We need to make principle-based decisions. That's where our values are, in the principle-based decisions. So do we want to be convenient? Do we want to make convenient decisions that just make, like, Band-Aid the problem? Or do we want to be committed to something and actually solving the problem or doing something that will impact the outcome? See, our actions control our attitude. Our attitude also controls our actions. Attitude and how we respond control everything that we do. And that's why what's in your head is so important to control. So that little, like in Inside Out 2, they've got this whole like control center. And whichever emotion is up at the dashboard is the one controlling the moment. And what we need to really do is hold on to that control board and say, hey, emotions, why don't you go make a cup of tea, anxiety? On we go play a video game for a hot minute. Anger, let's go simmer down. Go like in your corner, maybe punch a pillow or yell in it or whatever. I'm not going to let you, though, control the decision and the principle-based decision that's going to come out of my mouth in this situation. And I realize you have to have tools that help you to control emotions. Think about it also this way. And again, some of this is from that podcast too. We have responsibilities, which is people, inspiring them, goals, objectives, right? Our business, that's everything that's our team. We're responsible to our team. We're responsible to the people. We're responsible to the business outcomes, what we do. Versus our rights, which we have every right to have emotions. Absolutely. That's humanity. That's who we are. But if you're confusing emotion for passion, also promoting people who shouldn't be leading, then you have to take a step back and go back to your principles. So be careful. Again, emotion-based decisions can just get us into a lot of trouble in a lot of ways. All right, so let's get into some sips of that upside down caramel macchiato. Not sponsored by Starbucks, FYI. All right, so sip number 1. Displaying versus delaying. This is from the podcast too, and I love this because it's like we need a decision-making system or approach when we are faced with the E. So this is our response. So you can either display your emotions or delay like the emotional part. And I think that's what's important. And delaying doesn't mean you're bottling it up, sticking it down, and never assessing it again. It's saying in those moments, you're going to control your emotions and give yourself time, solitude, a moment later to kind of work through all of that. You need to make sure, as leaders, character is our moral compass for decision making. So the more grounded we are in our principles, our values, our purpose, the easier decision making is going to be, because then you have filters. And the more often you practice this and the more grounded you are in that, the easier decision making becomes, because then an event happens and boom, you know exactly where to go to. I'm responding in my principles, my values, my team, all of that, not the emotions of what that just felt like. Again, not a robot, but you need to be in control of that reaction. Respond, don't react. All right. Second one, emotional contagions. So you got to be aware of emotional contagions, because you don't want to be negatively influenced by someone else who is going to react in emotions. This happens all the time, right? And this could be your leader. This could be a peer. This could be someone who is on your team. It could be someone on another team or a partner. There are emotional contagions everywhere. So many people react with emotions to an event. They take that R and they run with the emotion. So be careful at talking to a negative person. Like, be on the guard with that, but help them realize, another R, there you go. Help them realize that how they're being perceived and how their emotions are affecting the team and themselves. It's important that we call people out when they have when they're emotional contagious, and contain that before it starts spreading, because that is what absolutely gets spread across teams and creates toxic environments. All right, last sip. Got to have emotional awareness. So being aware of your own emotions, especially in stressful situations, can help you manage them and help you make better decisions. Again, it goes back to just practice. So knowing that, like, we all have our things that set us off. We all have our pet peeves. We all have I call them my own like little soapboxes that I want to get on because my passion points about things. But you have to control reacting with emotion, because that can create negativity and that can set other people off in their own emotional, rabbit hole, if you will. You want to respond in a principled way. So really, really be aware of your own triggers. It's so important. I was thinking about if I could make an Inside Out 3 and it be all about leadership behaviors, what would the type of emotions be? And obviously, as humans, we have all of these other emotions that are already in these movies. But I was just it's just for fun. I was thinking about it. And I think these would be like the emotions I would pick. So first, an emotional intelligence. They would be like the master assessor, if you will, of everything going on. I would pick wisdom. One could say that's more of an attribute or a character or a skill earned, but I think there's wisdom goes hand in hand with discernment. And I feel like discernment can be an emotion. It's a principle though, right? But it can also work in tandem with, an emotion. Like when you have a reaction to something, then you assess it, applying wisdom and discernment. That usually is where principle meets, that feeling. I would also have a tough love. That would be, I don't know, like maybe it'd be like a big boxer kind of guy, but then have like a t-shirt with a heart on it. It's like, I love you. I'm pounding on you with a lot of love, because that's so important and foundational principles to leadership. Maybe also the other character would be empathy. So somebody who just, you all know what empathy is. Just really trying to seek to understand and being curious about others and understanding that we all are walking different paths in our lives. And then finally, calm. I definitely see a calm type of emotion person, inside out, because you gotta be calm in chaos. When you have the E plus R equals O, when you have that event, and if somebody could be the person who comes at you with the event and they're like up here in anxiety land. You can't meet them there. Don't pass that on to your team. Don't pass that frenetic energy, that anger, that disgust, that anxiety onto your team. Gotta be the calm. I'm going to absorb it and I'm going to respond in principle, and then we're going to move forward. Notice I didn't add any maybe a good project manager, character, or an inclusion character, or communicator, or writer character. Like, to me, those are absolutely fundamental leadership skills. But when you start thinking about the more intangibles, right, the intangible principles, that's where I was focused on, as opposed to some of the tangible skills, if that makes sense. And frankly, I think some of the most technically skilled people in the world are actually some of the worst human leaders. Be fun to have villain emotions too. The conflict avoider, the devious political climber, the whiner. Why do they get this and I don't? Anyway, just fun things to think about. But ultimately, we all have so many voices in our head. And it is on all of us as leaders to make sure, again, not that emotions are wrong, but feelings are not facts. And so how can we really turn ourselves inside out and make sure that we are responding in a principle-based, character-driven way, not an emotion-based way? Thank you for having a cup of coffee with me. For more sips and tips, connect with me on social and follow Leader Sips on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest. And don't forget to visit my website, carlinholbrook.com. Until next time, keep on brewing.